Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire and Masters Ball. Good to be talking with you, Todd. We are doing this a little bit earlier in the day than we normally do. This is going to be a permanent change for now, recording early. We still got plenty to talk about. And I want to start this morning off by congratulating you again, Todd, on the Fantasy Sports Writers Association Hall of Fame. That induction officially went down on Wednesday, and congratulations, well-deserved. I've said it many times that I feel like I've been hosting this pod with a Hall of Famer for many years, but it's great to know officially that you are in the Hall. Have you learned the secret handshake yet?
Well, from what I understand, it's a fist bump, but no. And I also, maybe not this week, definitely not this week, because this week is now occurring. But sooner than later, somewhere behind me, there's going to be a plaque. So that's maybe next week. I can maybe that will be the final mention of it. I show off the plaque, and we're just a couple of guys talking about baseball. Now, just so people know, we talked about a permanent change. We're hoping when the season starts and we start doing two-start pitchers, we can push it closer to the end of the day, just to make sure we capture all of the moves. We'll play that one by ear, but we'll make sure we get the best information for you when that comes.
Absolutely. Glad you pointed that out, because obviously doing those on Friday, things are tentative, but it's just better to push it later in the day, maximize our info, and the guys will be making changes to the projected starters grid throughout the day Friday, and we want to bring you the latest. Todd, going to be mostly a news-centric pod today, and I want to start with Andrew Benintendi, that deal. We knew he was on the block. We'd heard it was likely he was going to get moved. I was not that surprised, but it does seem like the Red Sox are selling awfully low on Benintendi. Do you think that's a sign that there's probably not much of a bounce back coming, or do you just see that as, well, kind of best for both sides to have a change of scenery?
I think some of it might be, and I don't think they're going to say this. It's just kind of a guess on my part. But there's a new sheriff in town. I don't know so much sheriff, but Chaim Bloom. There's a new boss in town, and he has his own analytical staff. And it just might be that even if Benintendi bounces back, maybe they don't feel he's the type of player they want to use, because he's a compiler in fantasy terms. He's got good skills, not great, with volume. Therefore, he compiles fantasy stats. Maybe they just don't. He fits the mold of what they want the Red Sox to be. I don't know, because he's a good defender, that sort of stuff. But they did sell low. But I think it also has to do with they just want to start to get some of the other players up, and it frees up a roster spot. Franchy Cordero, he's kind of been a favorite of the site, right? And fantasy in general. I mean, if they had traded for some of the Royals' young pitching, I would have liked it more. Not that I don't like Franchy, but that's the curious part was Franchy Cordero. It's a high risk, high reward acquisition, and I don't know. I thought they could have gotten something more stable, even if it was lesser potential than Cordero. But that's the direction that Chaim Bloom wants to take it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, he calls the shots now, and Benintendi on the books only for 2 more years. This is 6.6 this season, then final year of arbitration. So I guess the thinking was that, that 2-year window isn't really, the Red Sox aren't really going to be competitive in that 2-year window. So
I don't know about that.
I guess maybe not, but I think that's kind of what they were looking at future pieces, right, and they didn't see Benintendi as a long-term fit.
Right. Well, yeah, and I don't know how well I felt this when he was, crushing it in 2018 with the sleight of build and the skill set. I didn't know how long a career he would have with that skill set. Maybe that's part of it. On the Royals end, looking long term, it's only 2 years, but he's not going to command the big. He's going to get paid, right? He's not going to command the huge bucks. So he could be someone, if he plays well in the next 2 years, who the Royals want to sign to a multi-year contract. We shall see. But Yeah, I mean, the whole, you kind of alluded to it, and to open the question is, he was just terrible last year. So forget the trade. What's he going to do is a huge question. And, Mitt Mulligan's, he was hurt. He bulked up. He's a guy that, I'm going to hit. He hits leadoff and he changes his mind. Not his mind, but his head, where he's at in his head. I need to do this. Well, we're going to hit you fifth. Okay, I need to drive in runs. Just get up there and hit the ball, dude. That's especially in today's game. So maybe they'll settle him down and just say, hit the ball. I don't care where you're hitting the order. Just hit the ball. And I like him as a fantasy player in a vacuum, but as we've talked, we're counting stats guys, and, do we, the potential of a 280 with 15 and 15 is nice. Air quote adds value, but I want the counting stats.
And the 15, as far as stolen bases, is far from a lock. His sprint speed, not great. I know you tweeted that he might run more in Kansas City. I think that's a pretty good bet. But the bat is a question. It was only 14 games last year, but it was ugly. And the fact that it seems like the league interest was pretty, lukewarm, I think just speaks a lot to how much his stock has fallen. Franchy, on the other hand, I mean, this is the second time he's been traded. You're right, he has been a favorite of the site in the past, but I think that love has kind of, died a little bit. But he is an exciting player, exciting skills. The plate discipline is still unrefined and raw, but
he struck out only 9.5% of the time last year, right?
That's a
sticky, right?
20 percentage point drop, more than that, perhaps.
Oh man,
yeah, that is kind of notable, but it was very small sample. But he is kind of holding on to some shred of relevancy, certainly, and some people are still going to talk themselves into Franchy. I expect his price to tick up in drafts. As a Red Sox fan, you kind of were like scratching your head, but do you see him as a nice fit in Fenway?
I haven't actually. I mean, I've looked at Hunter Renfroe in Fenway, and I like that a lot.
Do you?
But nice. We don't know if Renfroe's going to play full time, or although with Benintendi out of the way, and I don't think Alex Verdugo is going to be platooned, that kind of frees up Renfroe to take right field and run with it. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think French will be given a chance. I think both he and JD Martinez are kind of equally poor defending. So if you're a JD Martinez guy and you want him to get outfield eligibility, I think this helps. It's 6 1/2 dozen of the other, really, right? As far they're both not all that great defensively. But yeah, I just the thing about it is, it's not so much anti-Franchy as Kansas City's got such great pitching. I got my hopes up.
Yeah.
Even Brad Keller,
You would have been the Red Sox third best starter? Maybe not quite.
I mean, it depends if Eovaldi's on the IL or not.
Oh, that's true, Eovaldi.
Or Rodriguez. Yeah.
It's true about Franchy not being a great defender, which is kind of weird because he's a speedy guy. He just hasn't graded out well, and if you watch him, it's like he cannot read the ball well off the bat, and it's some weird jumps in the outfield. I wonder if they can help him with that and get him on the right track defensively.
Instincts, yeah. We talk about it's a different subject, but Jonathan Villar, athletic as anything, just doesn't have a head for the old little league. Before every play, think where you have to be. He's thinking about, movies and dating, and, he's not thinking about, all right, I'm playing second base. If it goes to right field, I'm going to back up here. You saw him enough that it's not just he can't field grounders. He didn't know where to, throw into the wrong cutoff man. And I think he's a wonderful offensive player. I'm not a fan of Villar's defense.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think about him and his landing spot? Did you have to cut his projection in half, essentially?
I don't know about in half. I kind of just alluded to the defense. I think at this point, Jonathan Villar will play subpar defense all over the field and get some playing time. Yep. There's enough rumors about the Mets looking for a third baseman still, be it Chris Bryant. There's some talk that I can't imagine it's going to be Villar or J.D. Davis manning the hot corner for the Mets. So I think something will give at that point. But yeah, I think, he can play a little in the outfield. I had to cut it, but in a day league, daily league, I like it. The power's going to wane in City Field. It's hard to hit homers. So, well, actually, it's hard to score runs. Power will be affected. Although he's a switch hitter, may not so much. But
De-juice ball too. That's another layer on top of all.
Exactly. I guess that's a topic for
Yeah.
I want to learn a little more. I've been reading about it. I know we're jumping all over the place here, folks, but the initial reports are it'll be a little bit less bouncy, but it might be smaller and incur less air resistance. So the two may, back and forth, and it may not be as much of a difference. And the other thing being the bounciness, as opposed to 2019, where it was resistance, the bounciness lessens air exit velocity, which, as I've written about lately, will hurt power a lot more than it will hurt average. Exit velocity is just not, as much as we think affects average, it just doesn't affect average as much as we may into it, and power's the big thing. But yeah, with Villar, had to cut it. Is he mixed league worthy? You know what? I think he's mixed league worthy if you have that roster where you need speed, and now the cost is such that you're getting him as a middle infielder or utility. So if you want to play that game where you jumper him and Corey Dickerson in and out of your lineup to get power or speed, depending on the week, I think he's viable in mixed leagues. He's not a, pick him and forget him type guy, right? I think he's a streamer.
Yeah, an offensive streamer type. That's absolutely it. Yeah, Villar to the Mets. My dad texted me that he signed with the Phillies, so my dad got Bob Nightingale / John Heyman. But I had to double check. It was the Mets. Last night, Nomar Mazara got a deal with the Tigers, 1 year big league deal, non-tendered, of course, by the White Sox. The Rangers dumped him earlier in his career. Still only entering his age 26 season. Pretty hard to imagine. Before we actually get to Mazara himself, who do you see losing out among the outfielders currently? Robbie Grossman, JaCoby Jones, Victor Reyes. Is there one that stands out as an obvious loser to you? Because to me, there's not a one clear loser here.
I don't know that there's a clear loser. I don't think it'll be Grossman, right? I don't think he's a switch hitter.
They just signed him, and yeah,
right. So pretty good defensively, on base guy. I don't think it'll be Grossman. I'd like it to be JaCoby Jones. Not that I have anything against JaCoby Jones, but don't we know what he is? We've seen it. We've got that ship has sailed before, and I know Reyes isn't the. I mean, I want to see if Victor Reyes is a regular. Of the two Victors previous to this trade, Reyes and Robles. Derek, I hope you're not listening, DVR, but because he's kind of a Robles guy. But given their respective prices, I would have taken Reyes. I think Robles is a better player, but given at the price, don't know if we're going to see it now. So that's the thing. And although Mazara, are they going to let him hit against lefties? No one else has.
It's a good question.
Has he? He hasn't hit well enough against righty. Well, he hasn't. The thing with Mazara is he hasn't really developed, right? He's the same guy. We mentioned how long he's been in the league. He's the same guy, which if that's what he is, you accept it, and that's what he is. But he's got all this potential, or potential. Is that a word? We think he has potential. Although, potential, that's what potential is. Yeah, but it's kind of like untapped potential. At least that's what we think he has. Will he ever develop it? So I haven't actually done the playing time adjustment yet in my grid. I've thought about it. But, like I said, I'd like to whack JaCoby Jones, but I think I have to be fair and spread it around.
Yeah, that was kind of my initial thought, too. I'm looking it up now. Victor Reyes did have 38 games in center field last year, 28 starts in center. So, that was kind of my first thought too. Was can Reyes capably play center? Sounds like he can. So, yeah, probably him and JaCoby, the primary losers. Mazara was a huge pedigree guy. When he got called up, James and I were through the roof. We spent huge on him in the main event. it has not worked out. But I remember the excitement around this guy when he got the call, and it has been just steady, but no improvement. And that's what you want to see from a young guy is steady growth. Really hasn't been any growth. 20 homers, 19. We talked about Villar and whether he's mixed league worthy. What do you think about Mazara? Is he clearing that bar yet for you?
He was borderline as it is. He was one of those play him, like a Corey Dickinson, David Peralta, where if I have him, he gets in there when there's a series of right-handers in like the NFBC in the 3 or 4 day period. But I like those guys a lot more. No, Mazara, and the thing too is, you mentioned 20 homers. His plate skills, his patience, and his approach hasn't changed or matured. Nothing. I mean, nothing about his game. And it's not as if he came in Mike Trout and he couldn't get any better. There's room for growth.
There's room for growth on day one, and
I'm not saying he's uncoachable. I have no idea of any of that stuff. But he hasn't shown it yet. I'm looking at Reyes' defense. If I recall, it's been kind of inconsistent. But I think if I recall, the last set of numbers showed some improvement in that area. So, I think he can play a little defense. All right. So in center field, the defensive run saved. I know it's a little bit skewed just because of the short season, but he's been 1 or -1 every year. So he's kind of not park neutral, but neutral defender. Not good, not bad.
Yeah.
Which is acceptable. But if that's the case, that's more so in the corners, but you better hit.
Yeah, absolutely. JaCoby Jones, I had some hope for, and I know Jason Collette wrote him up last year in the magazine as, finding value in the scrap heap type you could take a chance on. And he pointed to the exit velocity numbers, but the K rate may just be insurmountable for JaCoby Jones, right around 30%. Each of the last 3 years and over 40% his first couple of years. So maybe just too much swing and miss there to overcome.
And he's not durable, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't, so that's an issue.
Victor Reyes graded out, looks like pretty darn well defensively in 2019. With more time in center, I think maybe that probably led to some defensive metrics.
I don't know.
Declining.
My quick, I need to know really quick. I'm doing a podcast and say something intelligent metric is defensive run saved. I mean, I don't know what.
I was just looking at Fangraphs defensive WAR.
Right. Okay. Defensive. Right.
Yeah.
So, and the fact he's in center boosts that up a bit. I don't know if defensive run saved is, normalized to position. I think that if you save a run in center, it's probably more important than saving a run in right or left. So the WAR reflects it.
That's true. I'm trying to think of who realistically they're viewing as the primary center fielder now, and whether we need to bump JaCoby from the depth chart, at least from the number one spot. It looks like Victor Reyes, man, he loves to go chasing though. 43.8 O swing last year, 42.8 O swing percentage for his career. He likes to go chasing a little bit, but the guy, he's only 26 himself, and you might want to see what's in there. See if he could be a part of the next winning Detroit club. Also last night, Todd, we talked about your Red Sox and the Benintendi deal, but Marwin Gonzalez, not that exciting, but positional eligibility keeps him on the mixed league radar. Are you going to be thinking about Marwin as a bench piece now that he is a home?
I'm just thinking about him as a Red Sox. No, he also, is coming off a bad year. I wanted, I want him to be. I went to look at his defensive metrics because he plays all over the place, and I wanted to make a joke that the Red Sox have now downgraded their reserve at multiple positions. Except he's average everywhere. That's so. As a Red Sox fan, I'm psyched. As a guy who likes to make jokes, I wasn't all that happy. But as a Red Sox, he can handle all these positions. At least the metrics say he can. So that's a good thing. I guess of course Red Sox Nation is like, why didn't you sign Brock Holt? Mm-hmm. Which, hey, whatever. That's the way it is. But I'm all right with it. Kiki Hernandez probably plays second right until Jeter Downs is ready, whether that be May, June, next year, who knows, 2022. Yep. But I think he gets that, and I think Gonzalez plays a little bit of everywhere. is he the guy that gives Devers and Bogarts an occasional break? Alex Cora like to do that, once in a while, give those guys a break. And unlike some managers, it wasn't after a 4-hit game, but that's neither here nor there. So I like the move as a Red Sox fan. To me, and I wrote about this, tweeted about this months ago, and some of the Red Sox beat reporters have. I'm not saying they took it from me, of course. I just think it's kind of an obvious comparison. Reminds me of 2013, where Red Sox picked up the Shane Victorino types that they're not terrible, but they're not huge, and they just hope for all the stars to align, and they did. I don't think they're aligning this year, but this is what it reminds me of. They're filling in the blanks, filling in the holes with major league players. They're not stars. They're just hoping that everybody gets hot at the same time. I don't think they have the pitching to make that happen. Plus, there's other teams that are just so much better relative to the field as they were in 2013. Mm-hmm. But, I don't even know if it gets them out of fourth place. With Tampa, the Rangers, Tampa, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays. I don't think it gets them out. I think it separates them from the Orioles a little more. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think they have the pitching to realistically compete in that division.
No.
Adding Marwin, it's a fine piece, but yeah, I don't really get it because you do have a guy like Jeter Downs. And I know James Anderson has said he thinks Downs is essentially ready, and he heard reports that Jeter Downs was essentially ready in 2019.
Yep.
There were murmurs that maybe he could get a look in 2019. I'd have to think the Marwin signing, delays him even further, though. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Kike Hernandez moves to the outfield, moves around a little bit, but I think they signed him with the intention of giving him close to everyday at bats, and now with Marwin there, it's like I just don't see without an injury how Jeter Downs plays a significant role this year.
Yeah. I think what it does too is kind of like in fantasy, the multi-position, it frees you up. You don't need an outfield reserve who kind of only plays the outfield.
Yeah.
Because Gonzalez can play there. So could Hernandez. It may free up an extra pitching spot so they can, and I think they need every pitching spot they can get. So maybe they can go, 12, 13 or 11, 14. And especially because their DH Martinez can also play in the outfield. So if it gives them the flexibility, I think, to have an extra pitcher on their roster.
Yeah, more than Marwin, more than Franchy, you have to be excited as a Red Sox fan that they got the next Tyler Glass now and Nick Pivetta. Did you hear that? I don't know if you heard that.
What did Jeff say? What is his piece, Erickson? The appealing to authority? Was that the theme?
I just heard some anonymous Rays scout or somebody in the Rays organization said that they were going after him before Chaim Bloom really acquired Nick Pivetta. And that's, I feel like, is going to launch Nick Pavetta's ADP once again. Billy Hamilton hanging around, minor league deal with Cleveland, invitation to spring training. Look, the speed is always going to keep Billy Hamilton in the conversation, but also this landing spot. Look at our depth chart for Cleveland right now in right field. Daniel Johnson, Oscar Mercado was very iffy last year. Bradley Zimmer was iffy. Of course, they signed Eddie Rosario. Maybe Josh Naylor plays a little outfield. We don't know. I think Naylor's probably a better bet at first base, but there does seem to be an opening if Billy Hamilton can grasp it. Do you think he's got enough in the bat, or has that ship sailed? Is he not going to be a starter on this team? I don't
think he's going to be a starter. I don't know that the Indians have this in mind. Or, yes, we can call them the Indians. People may wish we started to get out of the habit, but they're still technically the Indians, at least for another year. But with the 12th inning rule, the 10th inning rule about the man on second base, a slightly expanded rosters.
That helps Billy a lot.
Right. Now, I think that could be I don't know that is the reason any team would, keep a guy around, but I think it's a nice benefit to use him. How many times did it get used within the course of a season? How many extra inning games? 10? So maybe if it helps you win 6 of those 10 games, it's not a bad thing. But you need to be able to do other things as well. He's all right defensively. He's never been chastised for his defense, right?
I love
pretty good,
he's
actually.
Great. Yeah, he in center. for the Reds, he should have won a few Gold Gloves. Honestly.
Yeah, so even if he comes in late defensively Franmil Reyes is probably DHing, but you mentioned Josh Naylor. Some of the potential outfielders, Rosario's really good. Well, he has been good. We'll see. The metrics are up and down. But I could see him coming in for a late inning replacement, especially, if a guy like Shane Bieber has a 2-run lead. Yeah, you don't need any more runs. Get Bieber 1 or 2 runs and he's good, right? Mm-hmm. So I could see Hamilton playing that role. It's nothing I'm interested for fantasy, though.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just, Oscar Mercado may be just another version of Billy. So, and Daniel Johnson, he debuted, but who knows? He may need some more time on the farm. And he was actually optioned. He only played in 5 games last year, but I know James likes him as a prospect. Right field just looks wide open.
Bernie Pleskoff likes him as well.
That's good to know. Very good to know. A real quick note before we move on, Todd, from BetMGM. Sports bettors know that magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed up with RotoWire to offer new BetMGM customers a free 6-month RotoWire subscription when they place their first bet. Register on the BetMGM app or website and use promo code ROTO, that's ROTO, to claim your free subscription. Once you make your first sports wager, you'll receive a season's length of RotoWire's unmatched sports insights. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks by signing up and placing your first bet today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, and New Jersey only. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado and Nevada, and 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey and West Virginia. In Tennessee, call or text the Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada. So, Todd, a few other news notes. Ken Giles to the Mariners. Now, he had Tommy John surgery. This is a multi-year deal, so not really on the radar for this year at all. But is he a guy you think is going to maybe return to the closer role? Is he on your radar for dynasty leagues?
Well, given that closers are never on the radar for me in dynasty leagues, but he is. I don't think the Mariners sign a TGS recovery to be another guy. Yeah. I think they're trying to get a cheap closer. And so yes, if I don't play this way, but if you're in a keeper league and he's eligible and you're not playing for this year, yeah, you bid $2 or $3 or $4 in the end game, and you put him on reserve this year. Hopefully you have an IL, and next year you have a cheap closer, or at least potentially. So to me, that's I don't know how well he'll turn out, but I think I don't know about you, but to me he was always one of those underrated in that he kind of got a bad rap. He can't handle the ninth. He can't handle the pressure. Yeah,
like when he punched himself in the face.
Well, there is that too. Look at the numbers. The guy can pitch.
Yeah, the guy's really, really good.
And I don't know, the Mariners, they don't have the proverbial closer of the future on staff, I don't think. Although we went through a phase where that was the big thing, but now teams realize they can just find them or develop. Not so much develop, but it's financially you don't need to go down that road where you groom a guy to be the closer, probably because he didn't have a whole lot of success. Yeah,
that's the closers in waiting. Not often the guys we think are shoo-ins for closers in waiting. Not always the guys who get into the job. I think you're right on Giles. I'm thinking in the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational. Like if you're not competing, we have a couple IL spots in that league. Ken Giles is not a horrible stash if you're not competing. Rafael Montero was brought in this year. I look at him as maybe a decent redraft option if you're going cheap at closer, or even if you need a decent second or third closer. Anybody else there in Seattle that may be a threat this year to that?
I anticipated the question. I'm a little slow on the draw. They just brought someone else in, and I don't like him. I like Montero more, but
Keenan Middleton.
You probably
Keenan Middleton.
No.
Because he got a big league deal.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different team because I don't see I don't see it on the thing. So it's probably not, I must be thinking of a different team. So I take that back.
Are you thinking of Anthony
like
Bass and?
Sorry?
Are you thinking of Anthony Bass in Miami, perhaps?
No. I know it's not Kinsler who went to Philadelphia, but yeah, there's some team that brought in a guy. Is like maybe is it Arizona?
They brought in Soria.
Well, no, I want that because I don't so much want that, but I don't think that
Not a big Crichton guy.
Yeah, Crichton. I don't think Crichton's the guy, but yeah, well, it'll come across. But the thing with Montero is we've seen a lot of times where a injury-prone starter converts to the bullpen and suddenly can stay healthy and is very effective. And I think I don't know, but Montero fits that profile. So he is somebody I'd like to see. I'd like to see give him an extended chance to close because I think he's got the stuff, and he's still young, right? I mean, he's not at all over the hill, et cetera. So even he may have 1 or 2 good years and it's done. No, not even close. So,
he had Tommy John with the Mets, right? So
right.
and then he shifted to the bullpen, and he's found his niche. It seems like.
So yeah, I mean, the closers is such a. I touched on it in my piece that's not up. It'll be up on maybe by the time people are watching and or hearing this, it'll be up. It's about best ball.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
You have a section. Oh, it's up. I have a section on closers. And there's just aren't, there's just not, as you know, because you do the list, there just aren't a lot of guys that you can just say he's the guy. Maybe, no, it wasn't the Reds because it wasn't Doolittle. But that's sort of, I see people thinking Doolittle will close. I don't think so. But
big news there too with Lucas Sims' arm trouble this offseason. He says it's not a problem, but. Well, that's something to watch, certainly.
We shall see, right?
Yeah.
No, but to answer if I want to take a chance on a closer, Montero is in that group that I trust enough to do it.
Yeah, it seems like he had a pretty nice year in Texas. He stepped in and he was closing like immediately, like the day he came off the IL, he was closing, and I think, he's 30, and maybe not a long-term closer there, but a guy who in this landscape with closers could be a steal where he's going. You mentioned so few guys locked in. It sounds like maybe even like James Karinchak, who we were wanting to lock in, maybe not so fast with him even. I keep hearing rumors that maybe we have to pump the brakes a little bit on Karinchak.
We or you?
Probably me, but I'm starting to hear rumors out of Indians camp. I mean by that I just mean like other people on podcasts,
death
tweets
taxes
and stuff,
and Clay drafting Karinchak on the 7th round.
I do like Karinchak. I guess I have to pump the brakes a little bit, or maybe like grab Nick Whitgren or Emmanuel Clase, or maybe even Phil Maton to be safe. Clase's got that bowling ball, like 100-mile-per-hour bowling ball pitch he's got, but 80-game suspension. I feel like he's going to have to earn it and earn his way up the ladder a little bit.
I think that Karinchak is still the clubhouse leader, if you will, but I just think that maybe Frank Kohner and management, they just make sure that people take the job battle seriously in the spring. Earn it. It's not
just
yours.
Don't give it away. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not yours. Earn it. This wasn't the situation I'm thinking of, but another one that is just we've kind of moved this to closing, which is fine. I'm not convinced. I know you have him on number one on the chart, but Jake McGee to the Giants. I haven't done the research yet. Maybe they've come out and said that he's going to be the guy, and it may be just because I want to see what Reyes Moronta can do, and I know that he's not ready, and maybe just having lived through Trevor Gott last year, I understand why. So maybe McGee is the guy. I don't know that I trust him. Although you mentioned Jason Collette did a nice maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago at this point, did a nice, I don't say expose, but a nice analysis of McGee and his style, and maybe there is another segment to his career.
Yeah, McGee was great last year, and I think it's mostly we have him slotted in as just by default.
Yeah,
because Tyler Rogers moves around and whatnot. Though Gabe Kapler did say back in December of last year that Reyes Moronta will compete for the closer gig. Here's the quote from him. "We challenged him to come to camp in his peak physical condition. We challenged him to come to camp dedicating himself to potentially being an important late-inning high-leverage reliever for us. He's going to have opportunities to take control of a role like that. We'll see what he looks like in spring training. And if he steps up to the plate and emerges as that guy, we're going to be really excited about it." End quote. And I think I said previously that Moronta had Tommy John. It was shoulder surgery, which isn't any better, certainly, but
in some cases worse.
Yeah, a lot of cases worse, actually. Missed 9 to 11 months undergoing surgery to address a torn labrum. So, yeah, Moronta is big fastball guy, maybe a future closer. At least we got the look anyway. But maybe Jake McGee gets another chance there. Todd, let's talk a little about your Z-File since it's up. Focusing on best ball. You sound like you have the best ball fever. Is that right?
Yeah. We've talked about it. That it's we love managing teams in season, but I'll admit I like drafting even more. And that's the beauty with best ball is you're done. I know the cut line, NFBC cut line, has a couple of fab periods. But you draft and you're done, and you look at your teams and you root for your team during the course of the year. And if you're on a budget like some of us, there's some it's not all well. In this case, it kind of is about money because there's no you don't draft the best ball for a mock for free. There's little skin, and there's a couple of very very low entry places out there. It's not NFBC, but it's under the same umbrella. The Best Ball 10, Best Ball 25, and Fantrax has some very, very low entry point, so you can get a little skin and do the drafting. And NFBC has got some higher stakes with overall, the cut line with an overall, and they're new NFBC 12. So it's out there. And to be fair, I'm not as familiar with it, but I don't want to ignore it. RTS has some Best Ball as well. I probably should have done a little bit more research to include them. At least give them credit in the piece that they have best ball offered. So I'm sure everybody that reads the piece listens to this, right? So
quite possible,
of course.
But no, yeah, they deserve some credit.
I just it's a stigma. It's not rotisserie. It's drafting. It's fun. Mm-hmm. I waited a little bit because I still probably did a little too early because I'm still busy, especially something else we'll talk about in a moment as far as the no DH thing goes, but I try to wait till if the chat's active, I can participate and not be a loner. But so I waited a little bit longer this year before I jumped in.
Nice, yeah. I got the itch a little bit too. I've been doing the Draft Champions, which is another one that doesn't have much in-season management. Although you do have to manage your weekly lineups. In best ball, it's just none of that. It's just whoever does the best is automatically inserted into your lineup. It's pretty great. I love best ball too, and I may have to get into a few. I've noticed in the few that I've done that pitching gets pushed up, or at least the top tier. It seems like every best ball draft that I've seen this draft season has been the big three starters, 1 through 3, with very few exceptions. Could you explain why in best ball it's so important to have one of those ace starters? It's
some of it has to do with the scoring, and I know the NFBC, the cut line. I know because I helped not so much invent, but I helped fine tune the system. They're designed to emulate the NFBC ADP. So the NFBC is drafting these guys in the first round. So it makes sense from that point of view that they're all drafted in the first round. But especially this year. Depending on the categories, Cutline uses the same, NFBC uses the same stats as 5x5 by design. Wins are very important, and these guys have a better chance to get wins. So in other scoring formats, innings pitch matter, and the top guys and that's why they're the top guys, right? Because they're going to get the innings. So it does give you a separation. And the other reason being, in best ball, you're going to have pitchers with 2 starts or just a good matchup. We're going to talk 2 starts. I kind of alluded to it earlier a lot, but they're going to be, I think one of the things we're going to talk about every week, Clay, and we did this a little bit last year too, there just aren't going to be a lot of 2-start guys just because of the schedule and the way people are approaching pitching. Mm-hmm. It's just we're going to be looking more for favorable matchups. We may have to have an extra segment, where if you don't get a 2-start guy, who are your top 5 guys to pick up that only have 1 start?
That's a good idea. We're going to definitely have to do that.
Sorry about that. Just gave us more. Anyway, I think it makes sense. Honestly, idea, and I think it'll be you try to stay ahead of the curve, and I think it probably makes sense to do that. But anyway, the point being, you don't want to have 7 studs in your best ball lineup, because then you miss the chance of having somebody throw a 2-hit shutout or 7 scoreless innings and get into your lineup that you didn't expect. So you want to leave some of those spots. So you want to lock down a couple of the spots, but you also want to, I like to embrace variance, is the expression I like to use, and embrace the platoon effect of batters, the home field effect of batters, and pitching that jumps in. Sure,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've seen people suggest that maybe it's pretty hard to compete, in a best ball if you don't have one of those top ace starters, and I don't know if that's true. I see the point totals, and it's hard to grasp that, because the hitters usually outperform the pitchers on a point basis, but I guess the gap between those top aces and the lower tier starters is just so great that those guys are so valuable.
It's all about replacement, because the worst hitter on your team scores more points than the worst pitcher, and the worst hitter of the league is essentially worthless because everybody has those points. So you're going to make the adjustment, and it's kind of done. Our value calculator does that for auction values and rotisserie, right? Because the worst player is $1, and what that means, what actually is he's $0, but you have to pay $1. So that's he doesn't contribute everything, but rules say you need to bid $1. You do that same thing, and you can do that. Our calculator you can input a point system, and it will do that exact thing. Now, the thing about that is, and we kind of alluded to it, if you're going to platoon a guy, pitcher or batter, the bad stats that you're not going to use are incorporated into that projection. So at some point you have to stray from the rankings and forget, this guy's ranked higher. Yeah, but this guy has a better home park. So for 5 or 6 of the 26 weeks, he's going to be in my lineup because he's going to be really, really good those 5 or 6 or 7 weeks. So, maybe jumping Kevin Gausman up over San Francisco, up over another pitcher who's ranked higher, but for those weeks he's at home, he's a better pitcher than that other guy. Or jumping Corey Dickerson, a left-handed batter, over someone who's ranked higher, but when Dickerson's facing 3 or 4 right-handers, he's a better hitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's a very different game than just standard roto, and very different wrinkles to add to strategy. It's very interesting. I've had the thought in my head to just go heavy relievers and go, so every now and then some of these closers are going to get 2 saves in a week and they're going to be super valuable, but hard to do that without the innings. Hard to stay afloat without the innings. I
don't know if you're setting me up for my piece, but
I haven't had time to read it. I'm sorry.
I hope we're not in the same draft when you want to go closers, because that is the general feel, is that closers are pushed down because they're insecure jobs, and they need to get a save to get points. Well, when they get multiple saves, they're hugely valuable that week.
Yeah.
And just do the math. A guy who gets 35 saves, that's a minimum 9 weeks with more than 1 save. And it's more than that because he gets 0 some weeks.
Yes.
So my belief is I kind of want 0 closers, or I want 4 closers, because get 1 or 2, and if they both kind of have 0 saves that week, now you're relying on your starters to come through. But if you
Ks and wins, that's a lot of pressure on those
4 closers, one of them one of them's going to get a save and be in your lineup. But, one or two may get 2 or 3 saves and just, and be really good that week. So I like, especially if the room is shy, and you can tell right away if the room is shy on closing, I'm all over that. Now, the problem is, and this is where I when we were talking before about closers, you'd like to have a fairly decent inventory to choose from, because you need to kind of choose guys that, what I like to say is, you're confident get the team's first and get the team's last save of the season. There aren't that many that you can say will do that. There are far fewer than normal. So the inventory from which to choose these air quote, I don't have to do air quote, I can do quotes because people are watching, right? Quote
maybe,
closers.
Maybe 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, well, yeah. If they've lasted this far, I'm just going to switch to audio. There's just fewer. To me, it's almost like you have to get Liam Hendricks. Isn't he the only? And he might be the only closer without a blemish, but then he's only closed for a year and a half, and one of those years was was 60 games.
Exactly.
So, but anyway, I will. I kind of judge the room, and if I sense they're shy on closers, look out! I'm pounding away.
Yeah, I think because they don't get those innings, and if they don't get the saves in a given week, they're going to have a tough time cracking your lineup. But maybe a little bit of a market inefficiency there in best ball. Todd, just generally, before we get into anything else position-wise, what are some other big differences with strategy going from the roto game that we usually play weekly lineups to this best ball? What are the biggest shifts that you make strategy-wise?
Well, first is roto. You don't have to worry about the homer steal balance, because points is points. Depending on the system, steals are worth more or less. Again, with the NFBC formats and the Best Ball 10, because they're under the same umbrella, it's designed to emulate 5x5. So in theory, steals are kind of the same, as you would consider in rotisserie. Some systems you get plus for points for steals and minus for caught steals. So you just have to run the scoring system to see where these guys fall. But so that's one thing. But you do, and it's not so much balancing pitching versus hitting as in rotisserie, points. It's figuring out how the room is handling the rankings so that you're not overloaded on either end. It's hard to explain. If you're in a draft, you'll see it, especially on Fantrax. Pitching is just worth more. So if the room is not adjusting and taking hitters and you're taking pitchers, there may be a pitcher on the top of your list for 4 or 5 rounds. Mm-hmm. And, I'm getting the best value, but you're hurting the team's ability to draft a lesser pitcher and have him jump in your lineup. And by the time the bats are at the top of your rankings, they're terrible. Well, not terrible. They're just not very good. So you kind of have to, at some point, stray away. So it's the draft flow, understanding reading the room is it's a different sense. And rotisserie for me, I know what pitchers I want to build the staff that I need. I need to read the room to know when to get them. I can't go by my rankings and say Lance Lynn is a 5th rounder. If Lance Lynn is going if Lance Lynn in his tier is going in the 3rd or 4th round, I have to take Lance Lynn or somebody like that in that round. I can't say, he's a 5th rounder, I'm not taking him early. It's a different kind of reading the room. It's almost like reading the room and how they're actually doing their rankings. Do they make the adjustment? And then it's as far as backups go, because it's best ball, there's obviously a chance that players are being drafted. I don't know, when we draft, I guess I do this a little bit. You mentioned draft champions, that I hit my weakest position a little harder in reserves, just because to make sure I have somebody. But I think in best ball it's even more important that you don't have to go in reverse order, but because you have to go with the draft flow and who's available. But try to back up your weakest first player at the positions first, because they have a better chance. They're not on a weekly basis. Their points won't be as high, and you want to make sure you have someone who has a good week and jumps in there. So otherwise, it's reading every draft is reading the room. but you're reading. It's a different book you're reading.
I like the way you put that. Yeah, I could totally see that. It's a very different game, and you have to adjust. And yeah, some people just don't, and you can pick up on that in a hurry. And also in a lot of drafts, and I imagine this has been the case with you in some, even in standard roto, a guy like JD Martinez will fall, Nelson Cruz will fall. You're probably there to clean up, but are those players as appealing in this format?
No, and it's one of the toughest adjustments I need to make. And the best way to put it is you want every player on your team to be able to fill as many spots as possible. And that's why multiple eligibility players come in handy. Now, I should point out that Fantrax assigns everybody one position. So Martinez is probably outfield. Cruz is outfield. Different utility only will be first base, etc. That's just it's easier for the programming, and it just it simplifies in general. But NFBC has a program that it'll even move Shohei Ohtani to hitter or pitcher depending on which
that's cool
lineup is better for you. But I will take the discount on a Cruz. I did a best ball 10, which has very short lineups. I took Cruz, but it was at like a 3 or 4 round discount. I need a big discount just because you lose the chance of one of your lesser players has a really good week. Okay, he gets in there over Nelson Cruz, but you kind of wasted that high pick on Cruz then if he's only playing half your time, if he's only in your lineup half the time because somebody else jumped in, then it's not Cruz's fault even. He did what he was supposed to do, but you just didn't get to put it in your lineup because there's only one spot to put him. I'll take the discount. I'll take it on Martinez. Different story because he's falling because of his last year being a rough year. But in general, I'll take it on a utility that you expect to pick up position. This is not going to win us podcast of the year. This sentence here, but I'm more apt to take a utility. Congratulations, by the way, to our friends Derek and Riper, Saris for taking the FSWA podcast award. I think
well deserved, and we're coming for them with this take.
Oh yeah. We're gonna clean up next week. I'm gonna shave. I'm gonna probably have some new glasses soon enough, and another plaque behind me there. Yeah, we're coming for you, boys. I'll be talking about sandwiches and beer and gonna have voice lessons. It's gonna be all good.
Yeah, those guys, well deserved. Congrats to them.
And Ian Khan's been joining them too, right?
Who?
On a different podcast, but
Ian.
Our colleague Khan is going to be heard a lot on the Athletic airwaves.
Yeah, absolutely, and they do great work and setting the bar for this type of platform. You mentioned those multi-eligibility players, and we've talked in the past about how sometimes in standard, quote-unquote, standard weekly leagues, or even in NFBC with the half weeks, that sometimes those players can be overvalued because of that extra eligibility. In this type of format, though, is there maybe a little bit of an inefficiency in these players are still, even with most players bumping them up, that maybe they're still generally undervalued?
There very well could be, because like I said, Tommy Edman, he's gonna, if he has a good week, he's in your lineup. Who knows where it's going to be? And because he can move around, someone else, a lesser player that has a good week, might find a spot. So yeah, these guys themselves don't add any more points, but because they can be moved to another spot and let somebody else in your lineup to add points, they're so valuable. And if you have enough, if you have ample multiple eligibility players, that allows you to get an extra pitcher and just throw an extra pitching dart, right? To have one more guy that might have 2 starts. It may be Danny Duffy, who knows? But one time during the year, he's going to face the Twins and who else, whatever, the Indians without, someone's going to be hurt or whatever, and he's going to get a win and throw and be good as your 32nd pitcher in a 32-second pick in a 32 roster league. You take that. So that's what the multiple eligibility guys do. And if you do, I got to get Cruz. I can't pass on it. I got to get JD. I can't pass on it. make sure you get multiple eligibility just to cover your tail earlier in the draft.
Yeah, you got to cover your tail there because, yeah, it's sometimes you may just have maybe taking a 0 in a spot, and you just want to avoid that if you can at all in a best ball league.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens, and even in those draft champions, it happens.
Yep.
And you want to emphasize playing time and get those at bats. This is a great article, Todd. Z-Files Best Ball Fever. If you've got the fever as well, check this out. It's a great starting point. Or if you're already knee-deep in some best balls, just refresh and on various points here. Anything else you want to mention in relation to this or anything else?
No, but I just realized I need to be more like Wayne's World and start doing product placement when I do my drinking.
Oh, nice. I love it. I need to start bringing mine in because I'm just drinking out of a Panera
maybe
cup,
next week. No, this is I think we should probably save the discussion for when and if it occurs, but starting to make the transition to or the realization that the NL may actually have their batters hit. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit, sorry.
Yeah,
but
that's gross.
My confidence is, we were talking off air, I think we're both confident that it'll still happen, but it's waning. You know, if you put a percentage of it, it's over 50%, but it's nowhere near what it was a few weeks back.
I've been saying all offseason that I was sure.
Foregone conclusion.
And I still think, honestly, deep down, I think there will be DH. But it is trending in the wrong direction. You're right. I'm losing confidence every day. And it sounds like on the site we are going to be updating depth charts and batting orders to remove the DH for now and see what happens.
I mean, this isn't, it's a little Zola poll. It's not definitive, but I polled my Twitter folk, and 2-1 think there's going to be no DH. It was more than 2-1 that thought there would be in November. And I'm the kind of the point person for the ESPN projections, and we had a little bit of a email discussion, and the official set will soon reflect no DH. We decided we have to reflect what the current scenario is and be ready to flip otherwise. So
I respect
I'm spending the rest of the weekend making the adjustments. It's adjusting NL pitchers, and obviously the Mets and Washington. There's a lot of batting orders that, as you're going through, if you're going through the depth charts, you have to try to figure out who's going to sit. And it's, man, this guy's good. He can start on half the teams, but where's he going to play? We're going to be saying that a lot.
Yeah, it's going to make things so much harder to figure out after a short year. It's already crazy.
You know what the good news is, Clay?
What's that?
The second that I hit send and send Bristol the projections, they're going to announce no DH. Or they're going to announce there is a DH.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's up to me to just get it done so we know earlier. So that's what's going to happen.
Please do, because I'm looking forward to when you hit send, getting word that there will be a DH. Todd, great talking with you this morning. Congrats again on the Hall of Fame. You were a scientist, and then you made the Hall of Fame in your second career. That's just wild. That's like if Tom Brady took something else, then went and made the Hall of Fame in something else.
Well, let's not get crazy here, Clay. Let's not get crazy, my friend.
That's just a hell of an accompliment.
That's not good. What's that? Let's not go nuts here. And it's not even I'm a Tom Brady fan. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but I want to recognize Rick Wilton, who was inducted along with me, pioneer in the industry as far as not just. Everybody says he's the original injury guy, and he is, but he was, a notes, one of the hot sheet first to kind of send out notes, and Ron Chandler gets the kudos for the first pitch for him, but Rick was in it on the ground floor. Rick and Ron originated. Ron kept it going and handed it off to Ray and Brent to where it is today, but Rick was sort of the founder of the first pitch, and I'm very thankful, as I mentioned on our radio spot earlier this week. There was a time in Boston in the spring where the first time that the two of them, Ron and Rick, went across literally coast to coast and stopping in between and did 7 or 8 of these spring forums. I wasn't on the panel, but they called me up during the question and answer, and they said, we're beat. If you can, answer any question you can. And I said, all right, what? Sure. So they'd ask a question, and I kind of looked at the two of them, and they kind of gave me that little nod, and I'd answer. Nice. And the next question, and then the way I described it on the radio was the scene from White Men Can't Jump when Rosie Perez was on Jeopardy. Keats, and just that was me just answering all the questions. And after the seminar, they pulled me aside and they said, Todd, you've got an open invitation to appear wherever the first pitch forum is, spring, fall, Mars. You've got an open invitation. And I was fool enough to take advantage. And what it did was it helped me mature this, the speaking end of it. The writing, I had people, Brendan Roberts, a lot of people helped me on the writing end. Ron and Rick's confidence in the early first pitch forums really helped me on this end, so make me more comfortable with you on the radio and here. So I got work to do in this area. I'm not lying, but it certainly was a good start.
Yeah, you're doing great on this end, and congrats to Rick Wilton, absolutely. Todd, you're the man. Great talking with you. Check out his latest Z-Files column on the site Best Ball Fever, rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial. Hope you'll join us next week. We will be talking a little bit later today, Todd, you and I, on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, if you can tune into that, and then tomorrow on MLB Network Radio. So looking forward to talking again soon, Todd. Take care. Hope you join us next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.